Joining us now to unpack the legal questions here that Brian Laundrie's parents potentially could be facing is criminal defense attorney David Bruno. David, thank you so much for joining us. At this point in time, no charges for the parents. And their attorney, this is his job, of course, defending them, he says this.
I think it was realized that charges were not appropriate. There was never a threat. There was never a coercion. There was never a deal cut.
When we talk about charges, potential charges against the parents, we hear a lot of discussion around things like accessory after the fact, obstructing, aiding and abetting. Your thoughts now as the skeletal remains of Brian Laundrie have been found?
Yeah, don't forget also false swearing. We saw that in the Flynn case, the General Flynn case that we were brought through from the very beginning to that dismissal. But that's in play as well. I mean, there's no tougher position that I think that a parent could be in when a child comes to them if this was the case and they were told that something had happened. So if they opened up their mouth, and rule number one in criminal defense is do not give a statement. But if they did, they had to give it truthfully. So false swearing is in the possibility of charges as well. And you talked about obstruction. I mean, did they false swear? Did they lead investigators down a wrong path? Did they not? Did they know more than they said they did? It all depends, and it's very fact specific. But there was a soundbite there, and I actually echo it because we just lost two young individuals here, Gabby and Brian. And while Brian was a suspect here, we still don't know the circumstances of what happened here. It could be mental health. It could be addiction.
Well, the parents' cooperation appears to have been essential in the discovery of their son's remains, these skeletal remains. So when you talk about, they don't have to say anything, they have a right to keep silent here in our American justice system. Should they say something? And by taking that walk out and helping investigators discover these skeletal remains, is that in effect similar to speaking in a manner?
Sure. I mean, look, there's two different paths here. There's a legal path, which I said, which is rule number one, right to remain silent, and a moral path as well. And sometimes they do not align. If they brought them to the area, they may have done it on a hunch. They may have done it on a statement by Brian. We still need to know. And the investigators will be going through the phones. They'll be going through that home. We already know that search warrants have been executed. They'll be looking for diary entries. It's been reported that Brian had a notebook that was found at one of these crime scenes. That will be relevant as well. And the prosecutors and police need to dig deep into what they could prove because they don't have Brian. He's dead. We don't know what he would say. We don't know what he told his parents. It would have to come from his parents as to what they knew.
And there are a lot of unanswered questions. So quickly, I want to shift to what happened there in the movie set with Alec Baldwin and this prop gun, the tragedy that claimed the life of Helena Hutchins. Obviously, terrible, terrible accident. Our hearts go out to her family. When we talk about charges in this case, are we talking about negligence? Could there still be a criminal case here, even if we're not talking about this being a homicide investigation?
Sure, we could talk about negligence, but that's not going to be a criminal case. That's going to be liability and damages, which I fully expect to be part of this story. But when you talk about crimes that are being committed, first, there's a low standard of probable cause, but any prosecutor that brings charges needs to be able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I just don't see it on these facts. This is a tragedy. This is an accident. For Baldwin, I mean, he is an actor, right? He's got so much to think about on that set. He's got to remember lines. He's got to think about staging. And as an actor like Baldwin, you have to rely on other people for safety, right?
There were a lot of other people there responsible for things in props and whatnot, as you point out. Thank you. David Bruno, we appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Molly. Good to see you.
Molly, the Virginia